Calling from a 256 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Jacob from Alabama.
Jacob from Alabama. How are you, Jacob?
I'm good. How are you, Sam?
Doing good.
Good.
What's happening down there? We're obviously in the wake of the Bessemer unionization at Amazon, but there's another strike going on too, right?
Right. Yeah. There's a 1,100 coal miners are on strike right now, and there was something around that intersects really well with a lot of what y'all talk about. But really quick before I got into that, there's there's kind of an obscure caller who calls in to the Majority Report sometimes. He goes by Ronald Reagan. He's like an immigration attorney or something. And I found out that he has a podcast called Redirect, and his Patreon, he has a Patreon goal of 100. And once he gets 100 patrons, they'll take a pro bono asylum case. So, they are currently at 99 patrons. Yesterday they were at 97. I joined, then they were at 98. Now they're at 99. So they only need one more patron, and then they're going to take a pro bono asylum case and update people about it. So I think that would be really cool. Really cool. And since they're so close, I just wanted to shout that out really quick.
I want to just correct you. It's Redirected is my understanding of the podcast. Redirected.
I don't think so. I think it's Redirect. Immigration law.
I think it's Redirect. Yep.
Is it Redirect?
Yep.
Oh, well, that's.
I'm a patron of that.
I've never been able to find it.
And Sam.
So folks, go up and sign for Redirect. Maybe they changed the name. That is Ronald Reagan's podcast, and check that out. All right. So Jacob, what do you got?
Yeah, so the 1,100 coal miners, they're on strike right now, and the company filed an injunction against them, and the court actually issued a temporary restraining order. And so the complaint that the company filed included, they mentioned the fact that there were a couple instances of actually buses of scabs getting turned around, which is cool as hell, but technically illegal. But a lot of the complaint was like bosses and scabs crying about being called mean names, right? And the court issued a temporary restraining order reiterating the law about you can't keep people off of private property and whatever. But the craziest thing that they did is they limited picket lines to 6. Like they limited how many people could be on picket lines. Only 6 people can be at any entrance of the coal mine, which is insane. Like that's totally, this is literally the government coming in and telling protesters, telling coal miners in Alabama when and where and what they can say. And there has been, this has all of the kind of trappings of a good cancel culture, free speech warrior issue. Like these are coal miners in Alabama. A lot of them are conservative. There's an activist judge. The state is coming down against free, and there's like nothing. None of the local conservative folks, the IDW people, like there's absolutely nobody's coming out for these people. And so, I just wanted to make sure you knew that and see if you had any thoughts about that. See if maybe if you've been following Dave Rubin closer than I have, you've heard him talk about how important free speech is and that these coal miners need to be supported and that the state is overstepping, these activist judges and PC culture run amok. Maybe you've seen that, but I haven't. So I wanted to kick that to you, and I can
Well, Jacob, let me just ask you one question. Is there any type of redress that you can get from the National Labor Relations Board for, not you, but could they?
Could they? Oh, well, they're definitely, they are, they're taking the company to court, and they're looking at, they're lawyers and they're doing everything that they can. But, the court, the NLRB is a very teethless organization. Like, I don't even think they have the ability to issue fines at all, and except for like they can make companies give back wages in the case where they fire somebody unlawfully, but I don't even think they can issue fines. The NLRB, it'll have to come through the actual court system, and but they are challenging it, and we'll see what they're able to do. The president, the international vice president for District 20, which is the South, at a rally, he said something about, this is America and we ought to be able to call a scab, right? So they're going at the free speech angle on this too. The union is, and the coal miners, and so hoping that they can get that rescinded. But the order has been in place for 3 weeks now, and it was just extended on April 15th. The current order expires on the 28th, and so we'll see what happens with that. I haven't heard anything about it being extended, but we're going to see, and we're going to see if there's going to be any redress from the courts. But it's not going to come from the NLRB, I don't think.
All right. Well, I appreciate the call. Thanks for that. That's a little snowflakey, and obviously I'm sure free speech warriors will be out about this.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, one of the things that's always so interesting about America is that despite all the deification of like the coal miner and, the fracking worker and like these rugged jobs, the actual history of those industries, and not just like the industry itself, but the workers in those industries and like their radical history is just absolutely absent from most like curriculum that people get. And so we just have this very weird kind of cowboy culture surrounding coal miners and like their humble, like gruff demeanor, but no one knows about like the arguably intrinsic way that they contributed to just like basic freedoms we have today, and how necessary it actually is to, not necessary to support unions in order to reap the benefits as a society, right? There are versions of history that track like the, rapidly expanding democratization that occurred during the industrialization period as being, largely a reaction to the strikes in conditions that, carbon workers were railing against at that time. And yet we don't necessarily see unions and labor and even coal miners, though we sort of have very few of them still, when they do strike, as still being worthwhile to protect.
Right.
Well, I mean, we just like kind of fetishize the work, and there's like no discussion except, I guess, ancillarily about the dangers of that kind of work. It's like they're almost treated as soldiers for capitalism.
Or yes. Or the strikes. I mean, it's amazing how people talk about coal mining as like a historical, American job without ever really addressing the strikes.
It's also amazing how much they're fetishized, like Emma's saying, and they're deployed when they're deployed really, it's never really about them as much as it is about the industry. So, fetishization of coal miners is really just a way of fetishizing the coal owners. And when the coal miners actually are doing something, nobody brings them up anymore.
And fetishizing work for work's sake, and not really questioning maybe workplace conditions too. I feel like that's so much of what it is.
Well, I mean, it seems that people don't care if coal miners are put out of work as long as they're not put out of work for a green energy plan. If you put them out of work for some other reason because, they get black lung and don't have any health insurance or something, that's all fine. That's just, that's the coal miner way. But if they get put out of work because, now they might have an alternative job at a wind farm, we can't have that.